Welcome back to the Blurred Wire, everybody. I know it's been a minute since I was able to get on and talk about some of the latest things that have come out, but by now I've dropped my podcast about Blue Beetle, how fantastic that was, dropped my final Secret Invasion review. So sorry that I ended up being such a disappointment, but now we can talk about something that has had a lot of hype, I think is going to be very successful, and so far is crushing it, absolutely crushing it, and that is Ahsoka. So Ahsoka just came out last week. I watched the 2 episodes back to back, and then I'll be covering it every single episode as they come out throughout the weeks. And so far, it's for someone that's watched Star Wars: The Clone Wars and then watched Rebels. Ahsoka is everything that every Star Wars fan has wanted. The first 2 episodes had this great balance of action along with depth and storytelling. It feels like Star Wars, like I've listened to a lot of podcasts on it, it feels like Star Wars is really not going to hold your hand on this one. If you have not watched Rebels or Clone Wars, really just Rebels, I think if you haven't watched Clone Wars you can understand it, but it's like in order to watch Rebels you need to watch Clone Wars. So like in order to fully understand Ahsoka, I feel like you kind of need both of those projects. And so we're talking about hours and hours of animated TV shows that many people probably aren't going to watch, but I still think they're going to enjoy Ahsoka. The actress that got to play Sabine Wren is doing a fantastic job. I was surprised by how young she looks because Sabine is quite a bit older now, but still. I think Mary Elizabeth Weinstein was an excellent choice to play Hera. Overall, I think this whole project is really going to be fantastic. I think I think Star Wars did an excellent job in their castings, in their deciding to tell the story. I'm like, I don't even know, like, I want to review it, but it was so good. I have no negative thoughts about it. Like, so far, it started better than I think almost every show that we've gotten. Although the Mandalorian Baby Yoda reveal at the end of the episode was pretty genius, so I don't know if I could say like it started better off than season 1 of The Mandalorian, but as far as all the other Star Wars content we have, it has certainly started off with a bang. I love the reveal that Lizbeth is actually a Dathomirian Night Witch, because that actually makes a lot of sense for her character, I feel like, and we haven't seen one of those in a long time. And it also kind of relates back to Ahsoka because she knew one for a long time, and that was Asajj Ventress. And even at one point, like the whole reason why she kind of got kicked off of the Jedi and, removed from the Jedi Council is because partly had to do with Asajj Ventress and her lightsabers. This Padawan, Barriss Offee, pretended to be Ahsoka and framed her for the whole Jedi for the bombing at the Jedi Temple, and that's what got Ahsoka kicked out. So I guess I'll do like a brief maybe review of Ahsoka's story and how that leads into Rebels for anyone that might not quite understand it and might make it easier to know exactly what's going on. I should have done like a primer episode before it came out, but I was really expecting us to get some kind of narration for it, but nope. They are just diving right in, expecting you to know who Hera is, who Sabine is, who Ezra is, even who Kanan is. Like, they are going full force. And Clancy Brown, seeing him get to reprise his role was incredible. So anyway, just a brief backstory on Ahsoka. So like, we know her from The Mandalorian. At least most people do. But she originated as a original character from Star Wars: The Clone Wars. And so in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Ahsoka was Anakin Skywalker's Padawan. And so that's a little unusual because we know that Anakin Skywalker never becomes a Jedi Master. He only becomes a Jedi Knight. So at the end of Attack of the Clones, he's still a Padawan, but at some point during the Clone Wars, he becomes a Jedi Knight. At this point, Yoda assigns Ahsoka, who was raised in the Jedi Temple as a youngling, she was found from an early age, he assigns her to be Anakin Skywalker's Padawan. I think Yoda is hoping that Anakin teaching Ahsoka will kind of mellow out some of his anger and stuff and make him a better Jedi, because usually Jedi Masters get Padawans. But I think Obi-Wan agreed that it was time, and so they kind of have like a fun dynamic where, Anakin Skywalker, like, she calls him master and things, but like he's obviously taking a big brother role to her. Like, he's so young himself, it's hard for him to be like, you know, because for like a lot of Jedis and their Padawans, it kind of becomes a parent relationship. Like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn was very like father, son. You know, Qui-Gon, you know, Obi-Wan was like the son. But the way Ahsoka and Anakin like bicker and stuff, it's like he's like the big brother that protects her and she's his little sister. And throughout the series, we can see that, like, you know, if someone was threatening Ahsoka or someone that one of those people that Anakin loved, like his anger could flare out of control sometimes, and we would see it when someone like Cad Bane or someone else was threatening Ahsoka or trying to use Ahsoka. And so, under Anakin's training, she became very, very powerful. And as the seasons went on, you know, she would help him throughout all these various missions and stuff. But the real depth of her story came in towards the end of season 5, I believe. Is it the end of season 5, I believe? Yeah, in the Clone Wars. Or it might have been season 6. I can't quite remember. But it was season 5 or season 6. Because, again, obviously Ahsoka is not there in episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And Anakin is back to working with Obi-Wan. Ahsoka's nowhere to be found. So, Dave Filoni, who created Clone Wars, obviously knew that he needed to write Ahsoka out of the story as the Clone Wars were coming to an end. So, like I said, I think it was the end of season 5, there's a bombing at the Jedi Temple. And unfortunately, all the evidence of the bombing is pointing to Ahsoka. And Ahsoka is, you know, expecting the Jedi to not believe it and, like, you know, be like, okay, this is ridiculous. We know Ahsoka. Like, obviously she didn't do it. But, you know, they're actually investigating her because the Senate wants them to investigate her. They're actually investigating her because they think she bombed the temple. And some people think that it was partially Palpatine, you know, pulling his strings because he was still the Chancellor. And they think that maybe he saw Ahsoka as like a threat to his reign, you know, in his plan of Order 66. So he had, you know, he had the senators really push to put her away. Basically, the senators are trying to put her in jail, and the Jedi aren't really coming to her aid the way that she thought they would, because they're also trying to figure out who bombed our temple. And Anakin he believes her, but he wants her to turn herself in so that way they can get to the bottom of this. And she doesn't want to do this because she feels like if she gets turned in, she's going to be locked away. She's like, why do I have to turn myself in the first place? You know I didn't do this. So she's on the run from all the Jedi. And this is where we really get to see how powerful she's become, because she has to escape from all the Jedi, all of the police forces on Coruscant, and eventually uncovers the mystery herself of who bombed the Jedi Temple. And it turns out to be her old friend, Barriss Offee. And this actually hits pretty badly because Barriss Offee was one of the first other Padawans that she made friends with. And so for her to be betrayed by Barriss Offee is kind of it's a really big deal, honestly. So basically, she's able to uncover it, and Barriss Offee and Ahsoka brings Barriss Offee to the Senate and reveals that she did it, and, you know, all the evidence and stuff points to Barriss Offee. And so at the end of it, you know, Ahsoka is still supremely disappointed that the Jedi didn't believe her. And Yoda actually offers Ahsoka, he says, you know, what you've been through is far more intense than any trial any Padawan has had to go through to become a Jedi. So we'd like to offer you the title of Jedi Knight. And Ahsoka wouldn't take it. You know, Anakin was there, Obi-Wan was there, people that she loved and trusted with her life. But because they didn't back her when she needed them the most, she was like, no, I can't follow this anymore. Which is really powerful, you know, because this is all she's known for her entire life. But it's not like she went to the Sith. She didn't become evil. She just decided, I can't be a Jedi anymore because you guys didn't have my back when I needed you. I can't dedicate myself to this anymore. So she leaves. And I think it's probably one of the first Jedi that has ever left the Jedi Order and not like turned into a Sith, because it's very black and white for the Jedi. If you leave, you become a Sith. Like, that's kind of the only way it goes. But for Ahsoka, she left and didn't become a Sith. And so eventually in Rebels, she pops back up, right? And in Star Wars Rebels, it's a story about this kid named Ezra Bridger who meets these 4 people that travel around together, doing like little odd things to like disrupt the Empire. I'm getting ahead of myself. So anyway, after Ahsoka leaves, she goes kind of to the Outer Rim, doing odd jobs, kind of helping out. And then she helps out this trader and her sister and finds out they're doing a dangerous spice run job. All of that eventually leads her to coming back into contact with Anakin, Obi-Wan, and the Republic, because Ahsoka is a good guy at heart. The Spice Run, turns out there's some shady guys behind it, and that leads her directly to helping Bo-Katan when Bo-Katan requests for a Republic occupation of Mandalore. And this is something that, like, they don't really go into as much in Mandalorian, because this is still Clone Wars things, but basically there's a duchess named Satine, and her sister's name was Bo-Katan, who we know from Mandalorian. And so Satine was killed by Darth Maul, because Darth Maul took over the Death Watch that was being run by Pre Vizsla, and Bo-Katan was a member of Death Watch with Pre Vizsla, so she literally was part of them trying to turn the government in Mandalore back to its warrior ways, until Darth Maul took over, killed him, and Bo-Katan won't follow anybody that's not Mandalorian, so then Death Watch like splinters into two groups. Maul kills Satine in front of Obi-Wan. It's this episode in Clone Wars called The Lawless. It is the most insanely gut-wrenching, like, I think it's the best episode of Clone Wars ever. But anyway, so that's the episode, and that's where Bo-Katan splits off with her Night Owls. And so basically, why that's important is because now it's towards the end of the Clone Wars, we're in 19 BBY, and Bo-Katan wants to take Mandalore back from Darth Maul, because he's still in control of it. Like, the government, he's got this puppet guy installed as government because he killed Satine, and he's basically just doing whatever Maul wants, and basically an outsider is ruling Mandalore, and Bo-Katan doesn't like that. But she doesn't have the firepower or the numbers to help. And she wants Mandalore to remain neutral, but because Maul is an enemy of the Republic, because he killed a Jedi, that's why she allows the Republic, that's why she actually requests for the Republic to get involved. She's like, basically, you help me liberate Mandalore, and you guys get Maul, and after that, you're gone. Like, that's our deal. And so the Jedi are considering this, and that's when Ahsoka kind of comes back into the picture at the end of the Clone Wars. Anakin is about to do his investigation of Palpatine to see if he's really a Sith Lord. Obi-Wan Kenobi is about to go arrest General Grievous to try to end the Clone Wars. And so they decide there's no Jedi they trust more than Ahsoka to help arrest Maul. And seeing her fight Maul was actually pretty cool, because it really showed how strong she's become. And at one point, Maul even, like, tells her, like, we've both been betrayed by our masters. Come with me and we could create something incredible. And you're actually wondering, like, man, it kind of seems like Ahsoka's, like, might be considering it. But then, Maul tells her that Palpatine is about to turn Anakin to the dark side. Like, straight up pretty much tells her to her face, because Maul knows, and she doesn't believe him and goes on a rampage, and she nearly kills him, like, multiple times. But she defeats him, basically. And so he gets arrested, and the Republic have Maul, and, Ahsoka's there. And right when they're transporting Maul to the Republic, that's when Order 66 is issued. And so these are the final episodes of the Clone Wars, and Ahsoka manages to, with some help from some droids, she manages to free Rex from the Order 66 programming, and then she has to free Maul from his cell to help her escape. And, like, he's like, well, you're going to give me a lightsaber so I can defend myself because I told you this would happen? She was like, no. I don't need you to live. I don't want you to win. I just need you to distract them. So, no, you figure it out, but you're free now. And so, Maul's showing off his incredible Sith powers and Force powers by, like, picking up doors and blocking shots and stuff. And in the meantime, like, Ahsoka's trying to escape. And she finally does, with the help of some droids. And, Rex kind of goes off by himself. And then at some point, she watches Darth Vader walk up to a point. And that's how the Clone Wars ends. And it's crazy. And it's a really shame that season came out after Rebels, because if that season came out right before Rebels, and then we went into Rebels, that would have been such a good transition. But anyway, so now we get to Rebels. Obviously, the Empire won. They've taken over. And you have the Emperor sending out Darth Vader to do his missions. So it's kind of hard to go deeply into Rebels, because and I'm trying to focus it on Ahsoka, but there's a lot of stuff surrounding Rebels. But basically, Sabine Wren, Kanan Jarrus, who used to be Caleb. Sabine Wren is a Mandalorian. Kanan Jarrus is a Jedi who survived Order 66 because his master sacrificed himself so that way he could escape. And he was Caleb Doom back then, so he changed his name. And then Hera, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who we see in Ahsoka, is General Syndulla. And she's a Twi'lek who's also a really good pirate. And basically, this is kind of the early stages of the rebellion. And all they do is like, steal little things from the Empire here and there, kind of disrupt their operations. They're disruptors. Kind of like Robin Hood, stealing. They know the Empire is corrupt, stealing from them and trying to give back to the people. And again, Kanan knows more about the Empire being corrupt than anything because they're the ones that killed his master. And so they go to Lothal for a mission, and that's where Kanan meets Ezra Bridger. And he finds out that Ezra Bridger is force sensitive. And this is like the first force sensitive person Kanan's met in probably 10 or 15 years. And so Kanan offers to train Ezra as a Jedi. And so they become very, very close. And, spoilers for Rebels here, because if you haven't seen it, it's really good. It's so good. I didn't think it was going to be good, but it was like, especially after watching the Clone Wars, that has like this big sprawling storyline, and you see it through different eye lenses of like Obi-Wan, this person, this person, this person. It was really cool to bring Star Wars back down to a group of 4 people, but seeing them still interact in that world, interacting with people like Leia, Lando, Ahsoka, Darth Maul, Darth Vader. And at one point, we get to see a fight between Ahsoka and Darth Vader, where he tells her, I killed Anakin Skywalker. And she tells him, well, I'm going to avenge my master. And like, you can see the anger over her face for 2 reasons. Number 1, she knows that Maul was right. Maul was right, and that Palpatine was going to make Darth Vader his new apprentice. And number 2, she loved Anakin Skywalker. And so if this guy is saying that he killed him, even if it is Anakin, she's like, I will avenge my master. And so she ignites her white lightsabers and prepares to attack him. And then he says, like, that's not the Jedi way. And like, my favorite line from Ahsoka, she's like, I am no Jedi. And so it really shows that, like, again, she didn't turn to the dark side, but she's not a Jedi. So she's not under that we don't fight out of rage thing anymore. We don't fight for revenge anymore. So she attacks him and they have this intense fight, and she barely escapes with her life. So anyway, throughout Rebels, Ahsoka kind of helps them. Her her code name is Fulcrum. And even where her lightsabers turned white is because while she was hiding out after the Empire got defeated, a brother, I guess is what they call them, the Sith Inquisitors, which I didn't know much about until I watched Rebels, one of them tracked her down and tried to kill her. And so she defended herself and she ended up killing them. And when she took their lightsabers, because the kyber crystals of a Sith lightsaber are red because they are bleeding, quote unquote. And so when she took them, she was able to purify them and make them white. And so this is why she has white lightsabers now. So if we go all the way through Rebels, basically, Ahsoka kind of works in and out with the team. And then towards the end of the show, in the middle of the show, again, spoilers for Rebels, Kanan Jarrus sacrifices himself to save their whole little family. And I forgot to add Zeb. Zeb, who we saw briefly in, I can't remember which species he is, but Zeb is also a member of the crew of the Ghost. That's Hera's crew that used to be together. And so Kanan saved them all. I think it was the end of season 3, and he died saving them all. And so like this had a huge effect on Ezra, and I think really, really helped like hone his maturity into the person that he is today. And so now it looks like most of Ahsoka is going to be about them trying to find Ezra Bridger. And so it's essentially Star Wars Rebels Season 5. Because where we left in Rebels was basically at the end of the Battle of the Lothal, which was a little bit before A New Hope and Rogue One. Ezra is fighting Grand Admiral Thrawn. And Grand Admiral Thrawn has kind of become like the main villain of Rebels towards like season 3 and so. The main guy who's like hunting them down, and he's got like this cold, calculating personality. And so he's trying to hunt them down and destroy them and defeat them. And Ezra makes the same play that Kanan made. He sacrifices himself to defeat Thrawn. So, they don't have that. So his soldiers don't have that strategy anymore. And the rest of the team can help fight and defeat, the Empire at that Battle of Lothal. And so it's really important for Ezra too, because as a kid, he's grown up all of his life just taking care of himself, just looking out for himself. And so his time with Kanan and with everyone else really gives him a chance to learn how to take care of other people and learn how to be a part of something bigger than himself. And so basically he's like in this ship, and like he captains it in a way to like I think they're like either trapped on some whales that are called purga whales to like take them to it. Basically, he takes himself and Thrawn to another galaxy. And that's where they've been for the entirety of episodes, 4, 5, and 6, based upon the timeline. And so the rebels end up winning the Battle of Lothal, and that's said to what's kind of helped spark off the rebellion. And that battle sparks off Rogue One, and then to A New Hope, and then all the way until the Battle of Yavin, where the Empire is actually defeated. And so after that, now there's these Imperial remnants, and people are saying, well, with Palpatine gone, if we can rescue Thrawn, we can bring the Empire back, because they need that strong hand, someone to take over as Empire, as Emperor for the Empire. And so basically, at the end of, I think I'm trying to discover like where exactly the first episode of Ahsoka takes place, because at the end of Star Wars Rebels, we see Ahsoka approach Sabine and say, "Let's go find Ezra," because they were so, I don't even want to say, like, they were so busy with the war that they couldn't go out and find Ezra. But the issue was, like, Ezra made the sacrifice so that way the rebels could keep going, and so that way the rebellion could start. And they probably just thought that he was gone. And so once Ahsoka hears this chatter that Thrawn could be coming back, then she deduces, well, that means Ezra could be coming back too, and we need to find them before anybody else does. And so I think that's kind of the plot and where we're going with Ahsoka. They want Thrawn to become the new emperor, and this Night Sister is trying to go find him because she was a part of his crew, I guess, by his side or something like that. So it's going to be a very cool storyline. I am overly excited to see it. Thing that we don't know and what we didn't find out is that Ahsoka was training Sabine at some point. And so I guess that happened after the Battle of the Fall. Ahsoka was training Sabine, which actually does kind of make a lot of sense that they were training, something happened, and then they had a falling out. Because that would explain why the group kind of splintered off, because Zeb kind of went and did his own thing. Hera, maybe she got involved somehow and went and did her own thing, and then Sabine left, and then fighting the Empire and all of that. It actually makes sense that, like, Ahsoka, because Sabine has wielded the Darksaber before, which we've seen a lot in Mandalorian, and she got it from defeating Gar Saxon, and after they discovered it at Darth Maul's lair in Dathomir. Because a lot of people forget, Darth Maul is a Night Brother. So, I think the Night Sisters are going to play a role in this, and they are very creepy, so I'm glad that they're kind of doing it with, like, a gentle hand, because too much of Night Sisters can be a little creepy. But anyway, moving on to the main point. I think it does make sense that Ahsoka would have trained Sabine. After all, like, Kanan Jarrus did train Sabine how to use a lightsaber and a weapon, so she probably wanted to keep that education going with Ahsoka. And it would make sense as to why they split up, because if something happened, I don't know. That's the part that we're going to find out, though. We didn't know what was happening in Rebels. Like, we didn't know that Ahsoka was ever going to train Sabine. And so we didn't know that Ahsoka was ever going to train Sabine. So that's a cool thing that we're going to get to find out by watching Star Wars and by watching Ahsoka. I think the first episode, like, it showed off Hera's piloting skills. It showed off Sabine's lightsaber skills. A lot of people get stabbed and just don't die, which I was not expecting. I kind of thought Sabine was dead, but I guess not. And so, anyway, I can't figure out exactly where it is, because at the end of Star Wars Rebels, you have this scene where Sabine walks up to Ahsoka, and Ahsoka's there, and they're ready to go find Thrawn. And then we see that exact same scene at the end of episode 2. And so I'm pretty sure they're just saying that's the same scene, because I don't see why they would do that twice. So it seems like basically Ahsoka 1 and 2 happened a little bit before the ending of Star Wars Rebels, if that makes sense. And so that all of that happened kind of led up to Ahsoka seeking out Sabine once again to go find Ezra, which honestly I think is really awesome. I think it's a perfect way to start the show. I think this could easily end up being one of Disney's best properties and best Star Wars, but definitely one of their best Star Wars properties. Probably some of their best ever TV shows that they've ever launched, because most of it's been Marvel, and it's been, to say it's a mixed bag would be a compliment. I think there's, with Secret Invasion just out, now there's officially more duds than studs. So, Ahsoka is definitely looking like it's going to be a stud. I'll do a more detailed review after I watch the third season. I'll kind of include the episodes 1 and 2 in it. So this is kind of like a primer to get ready for it, because again, I don't want to reveal too much just because it's so good. And I prefer if people get to watch it. But when we get into 3, when I watch episode 3, we'll start going more deeper into spoilers and more the deeper context around it. But at least this kind of gives a baseline of Ahsoka. So yeah, definitely watch it. Definitely check it out. And until next time, Blurds.